Meredith with ExtremeTerrain, and today I'm talking with Jerry about his JLU. Thank you so much for joining with me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Jerry has a 2021 JLU Wrangler. He has the 17 by 9 inch fuel ammo D700 wheels with a negative 12mm offset. Gives the Jeep an aggressive stance. You have the 37 by 12.5 inch R17 BFGoodrich mud terrain TA KM3 tires, and then for suspension you have a 3.5 inch TerraFlex lift kit. Can you tell me a little bit why you chose this combo specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that went in with this Jeep was just kind of our past experiences with the JK. And this time I kind of wanted to take a different approach. So first thing with the tires, moving up to the 37 inch was a really big thing for me because the last two Jeeps we had 35s. And I just wasn't enough tire, for that lift. And it didn't look, as aggressive enough, and, really wanted to try that new approach. So the BFGs in particular, they were just something different. We have done Nittos mostly in the past, but the BFG I had heard great things about, and I actually, really love that tire. Very quiet, rides great. And then as far as the lift, chose the TerraFlex because it was a base kit that you got to pick your other components. So, that was big there. And then finally, the wheels, love fuel wheels. I think they're one of the better looking, they fit the Jeep really well in combination with just, a traditional black wheel that matches the Jeep, kind of like body parts and components.
Starting off with the wheels, you have the 17 by 9 inch fuel ammo D700 wheels with the negative 12mm offset. Is there any reason why you chose this wheel specifically?
Yeah, so our past Jeep and then on some trucks we've had, I had fuel wheels that were similar, but I also liked the spoke look. It's like that 5-spoke approach as opposed to all the individual like spokes and details, so it's easier to clean. And then negative 12 offset, don't want the tires to be too wide because I don't want to throw too many rocks up on the side of the vehicle. So negative 12 works out kind of perfect.
Is there any other reason why you went with this color or kind of any detailing as far as the wheel is concerned?
Since we've had fuels on multiple vehicles, they hold up the best. These are almost 1.5 years, 2 years old, and I don't think there's a single nick or scratch, and the finish is really good too. So despite hot weather, getting mud on them, it all comes off really clean. So the fuel has been really good.
Now, as far as the sizing is concerned, you again have the 17 by 9 inch wheel. Is there a reason why you chose 17 and not anything larger and or smaller?
I specifically picked 17 because I still like that traditional, like smaller wheel look with like the larger tire. And it does ride better, smoother, easier to kind of let air out if you're doing like, specific kind of like off-roading.
Now, getting into kind of the width and the offset, with the 9 inch width paired with the negative 12mm offset, it gives the Jeep an aggressive stance. Is there a particular reason why you chose that combo for that stance?
The negative 12, aside from, wanting it to look a certain way with the fender flares, also getting that extra width just to make the Jeep more stable. In the past, I've had some narrower Jeeps that they get a little bit squirrely in like sharp turns and certain approaches, whereas having that wider stance I think just definitely makes it more stable, rides better.
Well, let's kind of get into the tires. You have the 37 by 12.5 inch BFGoodrich mud terrain TA KM3 tires. Why did you choose the BFGoodrich?
We kind of took the approach of, we know what we like. So, I'd mentioned the Nittos, but BFGs, I did have on some past Jeeps, just the stock, like, all terrains that they give you. And I had seen like some previous setups in our local Jeep club, and then, some builds here in the Memphis area. Whereas I just really liked the aggressive look, but also just heard really good things about them. The BFG, the KM3 in particular, just loved the look. It is a mud terrain, but it also is really functional on the road. And I think that, compared to, previous tires and setups, probably one of the quietest that I've actually had. A few months of break-in, they stopped throwing too many rocks, and got themselves settled in a little bit.
As far as the 37s, what was your choice behind that?
In the past, we've always done 35s on most of our Jeeps, with like a 3.5 inch lift. This time, when we bought the Jeep, it was like, it's getting 37. So, a lot of what we had done was, building around that. So making sure you had enough clearance, getting the right wheels. And then also just the 37s with the new setup on the JL, and you have the beefier, axles and gear ratio, there's no performance impact whatsoever. I mean, they ride just as good of, if not better than 35s on the past JK.
Did it feel any more sluggish when you put on the tires, or did you have to kind of recalibrate the speedometer, do anything after adding the 37s?
It was just a little bit more sluggish versus the, I think it was stock 31.5s or 32s that are essentially on it. But once you upgrade the speedometer to match the tires, honestly, it's really not that big of a difference.
Let's go ahead and get into suspensions. Jerry has the 3.5-inch TerraFlex lift kit. Now, why did you choose this one?
So chose the TerraFlex one based off name. It is definitely a lift with a really good reputation. It was cool to have a lift that you got to customize. So I love that you weren't forced to, pick their shock setup. You didn't have to have like certain things or extra components that you were just going to replace anyway. So 3.5-inch lift, that was something that, it was definitely a need. I knew I wanted to have 37s. I didn't want to have any sort of clearance issue.
Now, as far as fitment is concerned with the 37s, did you have any fitment issues at all?
Not a single thing rubbed, touched, at full articulation. Nothing even comes close to coming in contact.
Do you have any future plans as far as your build is concerned?
Probably going to start working on the front end steering a little bit more. So I just put on the Synergy sector shaft brace to tighten up the steering, but I'll probably do new sway bars, like sway bar links, just trying to figure out a way to beef that up a little bit more. The only other thing I would do, potentially put an adjustable shock, something a little bit, beefier in there just to kind of help with the ride.
Again, you have the 2021 JLU Wrangler, the 17x9-inch fuel ammo D700 wheels with the negative 12mm offset, gives the Jeep an aggressive stance, 37x12.5-inch BFGoodrich mud terrain TA AM3 tires, and the 3.5-inch TerraFlex lift kit. Again, thank you so much, and for more videos just like this, keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.